Well, very good morning. Yeshia Yatanase live on Ekrom Nsem on Facebook, on YouTube, and then on TikTok. This is a day after the UEFA Champions League Grand Finale. Our Hungary, Budapest, Enra, Arsenal Football Club, and Paris Saint-Germain, Luis Enrique Martinez Garcia against Papa Ndidi Mikel Arteta. Game ni kone we and you one omon Enra omutumi edin kunim on penalties against Arsenal Football Club. Ya tena say be din komo about that game. Nyoma me hu ye and what I think will become of the Arsenal team, what I think will become of the PSG team, and how the season has actually happened for Paris Saint-Germain and of there omo totonioma Emma and Komodidi and so so oba share, like, and if you comment into the UEFA Champions League game. First and foremost, I would love to acknowledge and give praise to Papa Ndidi Luis Enrique. Enrique is building a dynasty. Now, I was say, because personally, I do titles out of the 4 years, winning 2 UEFA Champions League titles for Barcelona. Now, Pep a free scene. We will not get somebody to succeed Pep Guardiola in terms of the trophies won and in terms of the football played. But ever since Luis Enrique unity, right after Papa Ndidi Pep Guardiola in the helm of affairs for Barcelona now. I think in the first season, chronology 5 trophies out of the possible 6, which was one short of the Pep Guardiola. And Galacticos, they needed superstars to fill in the team. Edu baby, they tried several players. Edu baby Krano, Memenkai Krano, Mekai say Sergio Ramos played for them. No more Marco Verratti. The era of Kylian Mbappe, the era of Neymar, the era of Lionel Messi, Omunina be Remu or the helm of affairs for Paris Saint-Germain, or meant to me and conquer Europe. They played in one Champions League final against Bayern Munich. The then Thomas Tuchel was the manager for Paris Saint-Germain, Bobo Kuno. Emomu Lusu that game. And I remember Kingsley Coman scored the only goal of that game. PSG Lusu sa final. Now fast forward when Luis Enrique came into the free. Or and he's a clear definition of what total football and modern football is currently. Because already the performance between or non Pep Guardiola after so free Barcelona, I think say in Europe he has achieved more than Pep Guardiola because on OJ 2015 Barcelona and they were better 2 Champions League titles with Bobo Kwanidin at the Paris Saint-Germain in 2 finals. He has only played 2 finals for PSG and won 2 trophies, and as a Champions League trophies. Pep Guardiola has played 2 Champions League finals with Manchester City. He lost 1 against Chelsea in 21 and won 1 against International de Milan Club in 23. Luis Enrique has played 2 Champions League finals, 1 against International de Milan Club, 5 goals, and has won on penalties against an English opposition in etched at the Arsenal Football Club. So in terms of Pep Guardiola and Luis Enrique free Barcelona bobo kunim now. And they are mobile farm new project about Kokofa Man City about Kokofa PSG now. I think say in Europe, Papa Ndidi Luis Enrique has achieved more than Papa Ndidi Pep Guardiola in Europe in their new teams after some year Juma in Barcelona now. Now na Luis Enrique in 2 years in a row, what to me about conquer the whole of Europe will be a because we Real Madrid power to my back to back after winning the first Champions League now. No team has actually gone on to win the first UEFA Champions League, gone on again into the final in the second season and won it. The likes of Juventus Munina failure, Manchester United Munina Kobe failure. But then after Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain has been able to make it back to back. A great achievement. Also able Luis Enrique Abaso. You see, in modern football now, modern football now able to see and limited the potentials of extraordinary players, and that is where we have come as football people. Because when Luis Enrique came to the PSG team, normalize the team now. How do we normalize the teams? Players are arrogant. Players are feel say if they are not available, the team cannot play. No, we will get rid of them. Have a team that system edit the best out of them. Remember, near they are competing, and that is what he did. Into Abai and Kylian Mbappe would love to go Wamanako. Even when last 2 seasons or Champions League in the Caribbean. And then last season when he won the Champions League. Or Donnarumma so called Manchester City. And then the Stefan of Makwakoji UEFA Champions League. And that should tell you say players now what team and he did Paris Saint-Germain. They are not too extraordinary, but they are players. The system of Luis Enrique is bringing the best out of them. And then I look at a player like Ivica Kvaratskhelia. We all saw him when he was playing for Antonio Toto Conte at Napoli. The performance was great. But on migrating to Paris Saint-Germain, he has become a superstar. I mean, he's one of the best wingers in the world. In some Lianka, and we don't have a lot of PR around Kivisha Varaskelia. But when you look at the football, Kivisha Varaskelia has given us in 2 seasons in a row. And in Paris Saint-Germain, the UEFA Champions League. You cannot mention or talk about the success of PSG without talking about Kivisha Varaskelia. He's a fantastic player. The runs, goals, the contribution in the game. He's a vital player for this Luis Enrique team. Look at Banter, they did Vitinha. Vitinha was actually struggling for playing time at Wolverhampton Wanderers. And to hear about Vitinha about Wolverhampton Wanderers, nobody gave him the opportunity, or nobody even spoke about Vitinha saying, "Nee, or no do this level." But now the system and the structure of Luis Enrique is bringing the best out of Banter, did Vitinha. After saying Mbappe Ekrom, name Mamobe Koye, na Leo Messi Mukoye. One of the interviews I make Kai Pansa Vitinha, a granting Asama Kaino, Ombusan and the superstars in Inako. Asama Vitinha Kain said, "We are going to be fine because of Luis Enrique." And then they such statements and Vitinha Kaino are materialize it. Now Paris Saint-Germain is performing better without any superstar. Pick a branch and did Ousmane Dembele. Ousmane Dembele came to a year from Borussia Dortmund to Barcelona. The time at Barcelona, a lot of people describe Ousmane Dembele's time at Barcelona as a flop. But now I can say, in PSG and Luis Enrique, Ousmane Dembele has been able to win the Ballon d'Or. And currently speaking, we are in a World Cup here, so we will not be quick to judge and say, "Yeah, no, bet you match the Ballon d'Or." But you see, I can say, "What did the French like? What did the UEFA Champions League?" And France is also a contender in terms of who wins the World Cup because of the teams and as the players are the French national team. So when you look at Ousmane Dembele, how one also cry rising under Luis Enrique, it is a plus. And he's a modern kind of manager. What is structure? And you're the best out of the players. Look at the midfielders in João Neves. When you look at the size of João Neves, when you look at how João Neves is here, you cannot even think that he can do what he does on the field of play. But when you're talking about the best midfield trial, yes, yeah. For the second season in a row, the PSG midfield trio, almost the likes of Fabian Ruiz, Vitinha, and Abrante João Neves. Their football IQ and understanding top notch. And Nina is because Wapani Ding, Eli Luis Enrique. And they wama the PSG projector. Nasa a Khalifa Muyo Margins on Beno. Wama are so delightful. Obi I can't want them because or you saw normal players and making them extraordinary. And that is how a manager in this modern era, you don't have to rely so much on extraordinary players, and that is where Luis Enrique drew. I name Obia Bonabaso. And when I look at Luis Enrique and in the team here, I can confidently tell you, sir, it is basically not over. Luis Enrique is not done with Europe, and then no can say it could be next season they will come again. Because when I look at the coaches, I did that the major teams of the Champions League, now we had the systems of mobile, now we had the football quality and the players of mobile currently. Luis Enrique, our team because last season only Donnarumma was not part of the team. And Okofa Stefanov, Ebedemu. The core of the team of mobile Champions League last season, Mabo, Asanji the UEFA Champions League this season. That is a class because after Mbappe, it will surprise you to know, say, Paris Saint-Germain has won 2 Champions League titles after Kylian Mbappe. And Kylian Mbappe was the face of PSG for a long, long time. But then Luis Enrique making the bold decision to let him go. And they were to match 2 UEFA Champions League titles for Paris Saint-Germain. And it is an unbelievable record. And we need to actually give reverence to Papa Nidin and Luis Enrique. Now to end my game. Enra, I sat here on this same platform some time ago, when we were building up to the UEFA Champions League in America, I see Arsenal getting the first goal, and I see Arsenal winning by 2-1. That was the prediction I gave in our previous post, and also it will be called viral. But then after the game ended 1-1, Kai Havertz scored for Arsenal, and then Ousmane Dembele on the penalty spot scored for Paris Saint-Germain, and I gave the core penalties. Gabriel Magalhaes Ekrom there to training in the last minute, and I said the last kicker, and also Emma Arsenal Football Club Elusuye. Now let me go into the game. Now in the first half, after Arsenal shared the first goal in the 6th minute through Kai Havertz, I personally do think PSG had total dominance of the ball, because when you look at Luis Enrique, the style of football no. He wants to dominate football because of one era they believe say keeping the ball no, for a long time is also a way of defending. And the more you keep the ball with the right patience, you can find the spaces in between and score. And the idea about Louis Enrique mo, Pep Guardiola mo, almost style of football no, it deals with a lot of patience. Only patience you cannot play under this type of managers. Until you keep passing the ball, you have to keep the ball and look for a moment you can penetrate. And not a bit more winning games under such managers. So after the goal, Kai Havertz shut my Arsenal Bobo. We all saw in the game say all of a sudden Arsenal stopped playing the game. Game Nina Bedi Paris Saint-Germain, they were dominating the midfield, they were playing the lines, they were keeping the ball away from Arsenal Football Club. And when you look at the amount of goals and Paris Saint-Germain na share, going into this final, 44 goals. Going into this final, nobody was actually against the fact that said they would score a goal in the final. Because goal setting normally, even though on match of 44 conceded 22, no, it means that they are able to score. And the Arsenal mistake back one year, after scoring the goal, no, almost try somebody defending for 84 minutes. And that was tactically wrong from Mikel Arteta. Because a team won the data. So no team share a whooping amount of goals. In the Champions League, the games are going and what 44 goals are conceded 22. Which means he is a team that you can score. He is a team that you can beat. But then after the first goal, Arsenal had to go on a low block. Thinking so I'm going to counter attack by the show. And that was wrong because looking at the time ago nearby any day, I was saying Arsenal are very open, or more expansive. I was saying come up on a normal game and try to punish a team and did a Paris Saint-Germain and Luis Enrique. Because against Bayern Munich, you have UEFA Champions League 9 solid goals, which means that this is a team that can concede. And it's also first goal. You don't bring in the low block system in your team. Now, there's a picture I would show you in this video where around the 11th minute, Arsenal were defending with 11 or they were defending with about 9 men. How do you then create? How do you then score? So that was the first mistake of Mikel Arteta. Again, I was so surprised to say during the game, Edru Babin Osman Dembele went out of the game. Kivisha Varaskelia went out of the game. And still Arsenal were defending. Arsenal were defending. And I am so much in love with Mikel Arteta and what he has done this season. But that tactics I will use soon by bringing in the low block system and defending and thinking counter attack will solve the problem for them. It was a wrong tactics. Because I strongly believe, Arsenal were a lot of creative players. Arsenal were a lot of progressors. Arsenal were a lot of players. Their quality and abilities can actually move them to get goals. Paris Saint-Germain defense in him. Marquinhos and William Patrick, yes, they are doing well. But almost defense in is so solid that you cannot break through. And Bayern Munich gave us a clear example. Say, where there you can score. That's what I say. Where there you can score. You have a goal in this team. But then Arsenal have to stay back and think, they will use counter-attacks to stop them. One of the players who also had Arsenal, especially in the second half, Banter and Vitinha. In the first half, Vitinha did not actually, we didn't see the Vitinha, but in the second half of mobile, we saw Vitinha trying to drive the ball closer to the Arsenal backline, trying to create spaces, trying to give penetrating passes in the defense line of Arsenal. And I know I had to Arsenal because you see, this guy Vitinha, he is not that kind of player who will dispose easily. He's not that kind of player, and the IQ was through so much that you cannot read him. And anytime he steps into another gear, it means the opponent a problem. And then right in the second half, Vitinha actually caused a lot of damage to the structure and the position of a Arsenal defense now. I personally do think, Arsenal still a fine season. Chelsea for say they cannot sing the UEFA Champions League anthem. They cannot do this, they cannot do that. Listen, this particular season has been very successful for the Arsenal Football Club. It took them 20 years to go and play in the Champions League final. And when you look at this Champions League, there is a way a Champions League is rewarding. And you look at even Manchester United, look at even Chelsea. Chelsea lost in the 2007-2008 UEFA Champions League final. They came back in 2012 to win it. And Sana Mobile in 2021 against Pep Guardiola's Man City. Man City went to the final Pep Guardiola era in 2021, they lost it against Chelsea, came back in 23 to win it. When you look at teams now, baby, now you would have to go and come back. And yet there's even Paris Saint-Germain they have played in the final before, lost it, and then twice in a row. So there's always a rewarding scheme for those who persist. And looking at this Arsenal team with their manager, with the new signing Morgan Rogers from Aston Villa, Arsenal will still have a say in next year's UEFA Champions League. And what if they win it next season? When you look at the team and the quality and the manager and everything about Mikel Arteta has been progressions. Until Oba Arsenal team, the first position of the Arsenal this year was on the 8th position. Now in the second season, Osando the 8th position. In the third season, Odiomu the 5th position. And Wansamba the 3rd in a row. And as a 2nd in a row. And Sanoba the 1st in the 7th year. Ababaji the Premier League title. And everything about Mikel Arteta's regime in the Arsenal team as the manager has been progressions. And kakran. And Mikel Arteta at the end of the how many years did it take them to play in the UEFA Champions League quarterfinals? Last season, they played in the semi-finals. And then this season, they have played in the finals. And your progressions, our final, next season, Arsenal would want to try again. In general, so players now, a lot of them were sad because they looked at how season, and where they have come. And they strongly believe, say it is just the icing on the cake for Arsenal Football Club. I strongly believe it is still a good season, and on Monday I will say team need to be parody, no team Germany. Without doubt, Luis Enrique Yamanabaso. It is not easy to go to this level with this Paris Saint-Germain team. I know BID say they cannot in any way win the UEFA Champions League. Wajid the first one, their mom, Wajid the second one, their mom, and it is back to back in 2 seasons in a row, and that is what masters do. I think Luis Enrique is rewriting his name in the history books of football, and I am so happy to have watched his team play. I personally think Arsenal will come again, regardless. I have Ekrom Nsem live on TikTok, live on Facebook, live on YouTube. Comment, share, and like. This is a general overview of what happened in the UEFA Champions League yesterday.
Over the bar, over the bar, over the bar.